From shadow people and sleep paralysis to odd electrical disturbances, this episode's stories are an unnerving way to start your weekend. So sit back and enjoy these listener encounters.
The first time it happened, I was sleeping and woke up because I felt a hand on my leg and I realized that I couldn't move.
And he come across this object on the ground, which was the shape of a flying saucer. So he jumped out of his pickup and went down there, and there was 4 beings laying on the ground.
When I raised my head back up, I was turning my head, and out of my peripheral vision, I seen something hop to a tree. And it was tall, about 7-8 foot tall, and it was black, real hairy, like a gorilla.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Nick Ryan, and this is episode 30. Tonight's episode consists of 2 short stories brought to us by our listeners. As always, we appreciate you writing in and sharing your experiences. Our first story was posted in our forum by Layla. Layla writes, "Every story I've heard of shadow people have been men being described, but this encounter was definitely a woman. One night a few years ago, I was going to sleep as usual, but this night was a little different. My dog was sick and he was sleeping in his kennel. I fell asleep and woke up around what I think was about 1 a.m. When I woke up, I couldn't move. I didn't panic because I've had sleep paralysis before, but always felt protected because my dog was always sleeping right next to me. I tried to move my fingers slowly. I usually do this to try and be able to move, as it's always worked. That night, it didn't work, so I opened my eyes, and I just see this shadow covering my hands. I was sleeping on my side with both my hands in front of me. Naturally, I started panicking and looking around the room. Above my hands, about 2 or 3 feet, I see these 2 glowing red eyes. I don't know how, but I knew this was a malevolent female energy that wanted to harm me. At this point, I'm wondering why my dog isn't protecting me. But then I remember that he's in his kennel downstairs. I didn't know what to do, so I shut my eyes and eventually fell back to sleep. Since that night, I always make sure my dog is sleeping in the room with me." Layla, thank you for being a contributor in our forum. Your experience is definitely unique, as most of the stories that I have heard involving shadow people do indeed seem to describe a male presence in the room, more so than a female. I'm glad that having your dog in the room brings you comfort and helps to keep any negative energy at bay. I'm just sorry that you had to experience that particular encounter without the help of your dog. Animals are helpful to our well-being in ways that we can't even imagine. Let us know if you experience anything else, and thanks again for posting your story in our forum. Our next story comes to us from a listener by the name of Kelly in Oklahoma. Kelly says, "Hi Nick, my name is Kelly, and I'm from a small town in the state of Oklahoma. I had just recently started listening to your podcast and instantly became a huge fan. Anyway, I have a story of my own that actually happened last night. Yesterday afternoon, I noticed Okchamali, my dog, acting weird. I live out in the middle of nowhere, so I keep our front door open on nice days. Okchamali kept coming in the house and whimpering. He knows he's not supposed to be in the house, but this was different. It took everything I had to get him back outside. He did this twice. I just figured it had stormed earlier, and he was scared and being a big baby. Later that night, I had just put the kids to sleep and laid down myself. It was about 12:30 a.m. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to play a few games on my phone, when the dogs started to go crazy outside. I thought they were getting into a fight with an animal of some sort. I went to quiet them, only to see them sitting in the front yard like nothing was going on. I laid back down, picked up my phone, and the dogs started again. This time my husband got up to see what was going on. This time, Okchamali was watching the door and growling and acting strange. My husband laid back down and told me what happened. Just as we were about to go to sleep, our Xbox One came on. My husband jumped up and asked why I had turned it on. I told him I didn't, and showed him the controller that was still off. He got up, turned it off, and went back to bed. As soon as he laid back down, it came on again. He jumped up and unplugged it. I took the batteries out of the controller and said a prayer. After my prayer, I began to feel scared, nauseous, and like I was being watched. My husband was lying next to me, but I could tell he was awake. I tried to tell him I was scared and that something wasn't right, but I couldn't. I couldn't move, scream, or talk. I was terrified. My body became hot, and my heart felt like it was in my throat. I felt like I was about to pass out, but I tried everything I could to stay awake and move. When I woke up, it was 7 a.m. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the sleep paralysis. I've had it happen before, so I know what it's like. I told my husband what I felt and what happened after the Xbox came on, and he said I had slept through everything. He told me that he tried to wake me up after I laid down the first time after the dogs went crazy, and I wouldn't wake. But I know I was awake during everything that happened. We even had a conversation about the Xbox, which he said he didn't remember. I don't know what was going on, but it was terrifying. I've seen things, heard things, had recordings, but none of them had ever scared me like this incident. I apologize for this being so long. Thank you for taking your time to read this. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for sharing your story, Kelly, and for the kind words. I'm glad you found our show. There are so many things taking place in your experience that I honestly don't blame you one bit for being scared. I think it's interesting that the dogs seem to be extremely aware of the phenomena that were taking place or about to take place. It's strange how the dogs initially wanted to come in as if they were scared of something that was outside, but as the phenomena progressed, you and your husband witnessed things going on inside the house. Perhaps the dogs were trying to protect you and your husband from something that they could sense was inside your home. I'm also wondering if your dogs have ever behaved in a similar way in the past, or if you've ever experienced issues with electrical appliances. Animals can play key roles in bringing paranormal experiences to our attention. I would keep a close eye on them to see if they give you any clues. Hopefully you don't experience any other strange events take place, but if you do, feel free to keep us in the loop. Thank you for writing in, Kelly, and take care. Perhaps some of our listeners have had similar events to tonight's stories happen to them. If so, I know we'd all like to hear about it. Thank you again to Layla and Kelly for taking the time to write into the show. Folks, that's all I have for tonight's show. If you have any questions or stories for me, you can email them to me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com, or you can also visit paranormal-mysteries.com, and you can click on the Tell Your Story link there. You can get involved by joining our forum and by following us on social media, and you can support the show by subscribing and sharing it with your friends. New episodes are available on all of your favorite podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. From all of us at Paranormal Mysteries, thank you for listening, and remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.